Alright guys, so today we're going to be creating a car file for your 3D printing TinkerCAD car project in TinkerCAD. So first we start out by creating a new design, and I'm going to create a very basic design, and you can be more creative as myself here. You can copy what I do, but just keep in mind the more creative that your design is, the better that your grade will be. So I'm looking for new and improved and great ideas. So the first thing we do is we rename our project file, our first and last name, and you can just call it car. After we do that, we're going to create a platform size by clicking on a box, dragging it out here, and we got to resize it. So the sizes, we need 30 for the width, length is 77, and the overall height should be 3. Type in 3, hit enter. This is how big the platform that you have to work with to make the car is, and this is we have to keep everything on top of the platform. You also have to make sure that you keep the bottom flat. There should be nothing on here. We're not putting any wheels on this thing. We're just creating a car body to go over top of the wheels that I give you in class to race, okay? Next thing I should do, or we should do, is we're going to lock the design. That way it doesn't get modified by accident. We just start building on top. Hopefully you did some research about what car you want to do and you have an idea, maybe some sketches as well. First thing I want to do initially is put the work plane on the very top. And I think I want to make a convertible type car. That's what I'm going to go for. You have to think about how creatively you can use your shapes and everything over on the right hand side. Just make sure that with the shapes that you use, that they're not going to be overly complex to the point where we cannot print them out. So we have a wedge. I'm going to stick that here. Now one thing you might notice is when you start to move things around, things don't exactly line up correctly and they might move too much. It's a good idea very early on to change the snap grid to 0.1. And it's also good use to make, or great to make use of the arrow keys as well. Try to make sure everything's symmetrical too, if possible. And just use all the skills we've been learning about in class over the past couple days. So this is going to be the front of the car. This is like the hood. I want to shrink it down just a little bit. It's too high for me. Good. Next thing I'm going to do is it's going to be like the sides of the car, the back, and it's going to be convertible so there's no top to it. So I want to use a box. Just stick the box right here on the side. One thing to make note of is make sure that your project pieces are always touching. You can see right here in this area, it's not touching. If something's not touching in TinkerCAD, when I print it out, it will not be touching and your pieces will fall apart. So keep that in mind. Width is going to be 30. Overall length, I'm going to drag it back here. And I want to resize it so it goes right on that edge. And it looks like I can tell right here, it's not lined up right there. So I got to pull that out just a smidge. So it looks like that should be good right there. Good. Next thing I want to do is that's way too tall. So I think what I want to do is click on my project. I want to drag this down. So it's nice and even with the top edge of that like wedge that we just used. Good. Next thing we got to do is I'm going to hollow out the inside using the hole method we did in class. Take the work plane, stick it on top. We need a box. And remember, you can cut out whatever shape you want to. Like over here, if I wanted to, instead of using these that are preset, I could use any of these down here. Like I could use this one, for example. I could stick it on top. Just make sure you change it from a solid to a hole. And then I gotta resize it for how big I want this thing to be. Just try to be as like nice and neat and symmetrical as possible with this. I'm gonna drag it, and this is gonna be the footprint for how big the opening is gonna be. Make sure it's good. Looks like we're good to go. And this part's important. We gotta take this little baby cone at the very top and force it down. Just make sure whatever you do, you don't get too far down and it's popping through the other side. Pull it up, so that should be good right there. Now I need to group it together by dragging a window on the outside of it, selecting both objects, hitting the group button, and it's going to hollow out the inside of my car, just like that. Next thing I think I'm going to do creatively is I want a windshield on the front of my car. I'm going to use a box, and watch how I go through and manipulate this box. Place it, resize it so we got a decent thickness here. Should be good right there. The width is going to be 30 because that's how wide my car is. So type in 30. The height, that's way too tall. No one has a windshield that tall. So let's shrink it down. If you want to, you can change colors, but keep in mind, whenever we print it out, color really does not matter. It only matters when, like whatever color I put in the printer. So colors, you can have whatever you want. I don't care. To take it a step further, most windshields are not straight up and down. We can tilt it back using our rotation tool like this. Now, one thing to make note of, you got to be careful of, is how much you have your things touching, your objects touching right here. That corner is just barely touching it. It's going to be a weak spot. What we have to do is just take this, force it down ever so slightly, so that way we have more surface area touching our car project. I'm going to move this back about right there. That should be good. There's our windshield. That's looking pretty good. Next thing I want to do is I think I want to put seats in here, like bench seats. Take the work plane, stick it on the inside of the car, and I'm just going to start piecing this together. I'm going to change to a different color just so it's a contrast and it's easier to see on the screen. I'm going to move it around and just start resizing it. And for this, I think the first thing I want to do is create the bench part of the seat where you sit down. So resize it, thickness, down. Looks pretty good. Well, from that angle it looked good, but right here it's too thick. Perfect, good. Next thing I want to do, I'm going to stick the work plate on the top of that, and I want to create a backrest, because most seats have some type of backrest inside of a vehicle or a car. Okay, I'm going to change this to white, just so it blends in. Need to resize it. Good. Make it so it's not too wide here. Good. And the height, that back, ooh, that's really thick. It's too thick. Shrink the height down. Looks pretty good. And little design features like if you tilt this back, that's going to take your design to the next level and I'll give you a better grade. So we're going to take this, push it down just a little bit. Looks like a pretty good seat. Pretty cool. I like it. Thing I will probably fix with this is I think I want to move it back a little bit. That's a cleaner look right there. Now let's say we want a second row of seat, but instead of going through that whole process and creating something that's going to be similar but not the same, we can group both of these together, click on one thing, hold down Shift, click on the second, click on the group button. Now this is one solid object right here. Control C, Control V for copy and paste, and all we got to do is move it to the back. Perfect. And if you want to go even further, like little design features for me really like speak a lot of like volume for your design. So if you create like, I don't know, a little armrest in here, that'll be pretty cool. Maybe cup holders. So if we want to go as far as that, again, just use your shapes, resize them. So I think I want to put an armrest in the sensor. I'm going to resize this. Shrink it down. Okay, there we go, about right there. Cool, that's good. I'm going to change it so it's white. Perfect, I like it. There's my armrest. If I want to take it even further, which is pretty cool, let's put some cup holders in this little guy. So I put the work plane on top, use a cylinder, shrink your cylinder down, and just one tip, the more that you zoom in, the easier it is to shrink some stuff down. Let's make this, let's go with 2, that dimension, and 2 for the other. Just keeps things more uniform. Okay, looks like my sizes are off a little bit, so how about we do 1.5 and 1.5. Perfect. So I'm going to move the cup holders towards the front, change it to a hole. Now here's the trick, you got to force it down, just like this. Perfect. I'm going to do Control C, Control V because I want 2 of them, 2 cup holders. That way, one for you, one for your passenger. Move it to the front. Make sure these things are lined up. Looks pretty good to me. Now I'm just going to group it together. So I'm going to hold down Shift, click on these 2, and then this guy right here. Hit my group button. There's my cup holders. Pretty cool. So you can keep adding your stuff to your design. Like if you want to do door handles, great. If you want to do headlights, taillights, sure, go for it. If you want to put text, just make sure the text is big enough that it's going to show up on the side of your car. It's not going to be too small. If it's too small, It's hard for my printer to print out that small, like types of stuff. You can just make sure it's big and it's not too complex. And look all around your project. Just make sure all your stuff is connected, okay? If you want to add other things to your design, go for it. I fully support it. And if you need any help, just feel free to come see me and I'll help you out.